Ever imagine just tuning in and watching history? Like actually seeing it happen right there in front of you?
Like a TV, but for the past.
Yeah, that's the idea behind the Chronovisor. Supposedly let you witness past events, anything from Napoleon giving a speech to, like, ancient Roman plays.
It'd be like having a window into history.
Exactly. And today we're going deep on the Chronovisor. We've got articles, excerpts, the whole shebang.
It's a wild story. Mixes science and history, and a good bit of mystery, too.
A whole lot of mystery. And the guy at the heart of it all, Father Pellegrino Ernetti, he's almost unbelievable.
Oh, for sure. Ernetti was an Italian Catholic priest born back in 1925. Not your average priest, though.
Not even close. I mean, we're talking scholar of music, a known exorcist, and get this, a serious quantum physics buff.
What a combo, right? That's what makes Ernetti so fascinating.
Absolutely. He was in all these different worlds. And I guess that's kind of how he came to claim he built the Chronovisor back in the 50s.
It's like something out of a movie.
Totally. Now, he wasn't saying it was a time machine to actually travel through time.
More like a time TV.
Yeah, like a TV tuned to the past. He even described all the parts. It had antennas to catch the light and sound from the past, a direction finder to zero in on the time and place, a screen, obviously, to see it all, and even a recorder.
He thought of everything.
It's like, if it were real, where is this thing now? And the things he claimed to have seen with it.
Oh, yeah. The events. Those are pretty out there.
Totally out there.
Yeah.
Speeches by Mussolini and Napoleon, scenes from ancient Rome, even a performance of a lost Roman play, Thyestes.
A lost play. That'd be huge for historians.
Huge. And Ernetti. He tried to prove it. Said he had a manuscript of Thyestes written in Latin that he copied while watching it on the Chronovisor.
That would be some serious proof.
Right. He even had a picture of Christ on the cross. Said that came from the Chronovisor, too.
Now, that's a bold claim, but that's where things start to unravel a bit.
How so?
Well, that picture of Christ. Turns out it was just a flipped image from a postcard of a statue.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And on top of that, experts looked at that Thyestes manuscript, and it doesn't quite line up with the Latin from that time period. So now the big question is, was Ernetti a genius, a hoaxer, or somewhere in between?
That is the question. And it gets even more complicated after Ernetti died. This anonymous letter popped up, supposedly from a relative, claiming Ernetti confessed on his deathbed that the evidence was fake.
A deathbed confession. That changes things.
Right. But here's the kicker. The letter also says Ernetti insisted the Chronovisor itself was real.
So he's saying the device worked, but the proof he gave was made up.
Exactly. It's like he wanted to have it both ways.
That is strange. Makes you wonder if he was pressured to take back his claims, maybe by the church or someone else with a lot of power.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the idea of a device that can see into the past, there's bound to be people who'd want to keep that under wraps. And of course, you can't have a good mystery without a few conspiracy theories.
Always got to have those.
Some people think the Vatican snatched up the Chronovisor. Imagine the secrets they could dig up. Others think governments are using it for, spying, changing history, even messing with the economy.
Yeah, the possibilities are kind of mind-blowing and a little scary.
For sure. But before we go too far down that rabbit hole, let's step back a sec. Could any of this even be possible scientifically?
Right, good point. Ernetti talked about his tech being based on something he called chronotopology. Basically the idea that the past leaves some sort of physical trace that you can capture and replay.
Chronotopology. Sounds impressive, but is that even a real scientific term?
Not really, but there are areas of science that do look at the possibility of getting info from the past.
Yeah.
We've talked about paleoacoustics before, right? Recovering old sounds from things like pottery.
Right. So if we can get sounds from the past, could visuals be that far off?
That's a really interesting question, and it gets to the core of the difference between recording sound and capturing actual images from the past. Paleoacoustics works because sound waves physically leave their mark on things. But light, as we understand it now, doesn't really do that.
So hearing ancient Romans talking might actually be possible.
Maybe.
But actually seeing them?
Not so much, at least not yet. So it seems like actually seeing the past, like with Ernetti's Chronovisor, is still a ways off, at least for now.
Well, yeah, scientifically speaking, it's a pretty big leap.
Yeah.
But even if we just pretend for a minute and say something like the Chronovisor could exist.
Okay, I like where this is going.
It makes you think, right? What would that mean? Not just for history books and stuff, but for how we understand, ourselves, our place in time.
It'd be huge. Think about it. We could actually see major historical events. I mean, really see them, like the signing of the Declaration of Independence or listen to a lost speech by Socrates. It could completely change how we understand history.
No more arguing about what really happened.
Right. But there's a flip side, too. Some pretty serious ethical stuff to think about, like privacy, the chance for someone to mess with history, even how we think about free will.
Yeah, it's kind of a lot to process.
Yeah.
I mean, would we just become obsessed with the past if it were that easy to access? Would we forget about the present, the future?
It's possible. And what about the potential for abuse? Imagine governments rewriting history to fit their agenda, or people using knowledge of the past for their own gain. It's a lot of power.
For sure. And even just the act of watching the past, could that be a problem in itself?
How do you mean?
Well, if we could easily go back and see how things played out, would we learn from our mistakes? Would we keep striving to improve things? Or would we get complacent thinking, oh, well, we can always just rewind and try again?
That's an interesting point. Our whole understanding of history, the way it shapes us, that could change.
Right. And there's another thing about the Chronovisor that gets me. It wasn't just about the big events. Ernetti said they saw everyday life, too, like regular people in ancient Rome going about their day.
Oh, wow. So not just the big historical moments, but like a glimpse into everyday life.
Exactly. It wasn't just about kings and battles and stuff, but how people actually lived.
That's a whole different level, to see the culture, their beliefs, their struggles, all firsthand.
It'd be like a documentary, but real. No actors or sets, just real people doing their thing, totally unaware that we're watching.
It'd be amazing, wouldn't it, to actually experience history through the eyes of the people who lived it?
Absolutely. But it makes you wonder, would we really just be watching? Or would us, even just observing from afar, somehow change things?
Whoa, now you're getting into some quantum physics territory, the idea that just observing something can affect reality.
I know, it's deep stuff. But that's what makes this whole Chronovisor thing so fascinating. It's not just about the technology itself. It's about the big questions it raises. What does it even mean to have access to the past? It really makes you think about time, like what it even is. We've talked about all these crazy claims about the Chronovisor, what it could supposedly do, and even the ethical problems it would cause if it were real. But let's be honest, could something like this ever actually exist? Or is it just science fiction?
Yeah, that's the big question. It's a cool concept, but it does rely on some pretty far-out ideas, like we talked about. Ernetti's chronotopology thing, the idea that the past leaves behind something physical you can capture.
Right.
That's not really how science understands things right now. It's an interesting thought, but it's more philosophy than hard science.
So time travel and seeing the past, like Ernetti described, that's probably still just in the movies. But is there anything, even a little bit, that suggests we could access the past somehow? We've talked about paleoacoustics, getting those ancient sounds from things like pottery. Could that maybe lead to something like the Chronovisor, even if it's super limited?
Paleoacoustics is pretty amazing. Shows how scientists can get info from the most unexpected places. But recording sound and capturing visuals from the past, those are two totally different things. Sound waves, they leave physical marks we can analyze. Light, though?
Doesn't quite work the same way?
Nope. It doesn't leave a trace that we know how to capture and rebuild. Not yet, anyway.
So we might be able to hear ancient Romans chatting one day?
Maybe.
But seeing them walk around?
Still a long shot. But let's say, just for fun, that something like the Chronovisor did exist. What would that mean? Not just for history, but for everything. How we see ourselves, our place in time, all of it. Wow, the implications would be huge. We could see historical events with our own eyes. Imagine witnessing firsthand the signing of important documents, seeing lost civilizations, understanding cultures and events that have been mysteries for centuries. But as we said, there's a price for that knowledge.
A big one, yeah. If we could just peek into the past anytime we wanted, would we even care about the present or the future? And think about the potential for someone to misuse that power.
Right, that's a huge concern. Governments twisting history to their advantage, individuals exploiting the past for their own gain, it could get very messy.
Totally. And think about personal privacy. If people could see everything we've ever done, wouldn't that change how we act today?
Absolutely. It could completely change how we live, knowing that future generations could be watching our every move. Our sense of freedom, individuality, would all be impacted.
It's almost like we'd be opening a can of worms we might not be able to close. The knowledge is tempting, sure, but the consequences could be devastating. Maybe it's a good thing we don't fully understand time and the past yet.
Maybe you're right. But humans are curious by nature. We always want to push the limits, explore the unknown. This Chronovisor story, real or not, reminds us how alluring the secrets of time are and how dangerous they could be.
Well said. It seems like we're ending this deep dive with more questions than answers. Was Ernetti a visionary, a trickster, or just someone obsessed with an impossible idea? Did the chronovisor ever really exist? Or was it all in his head, a dream that still fascinates us today? And maybe the most important question, even if we could build a chronovisor, should we?
Those are questions we all have to think about. This story shows us that knowledge, especially about time and history, comes with a huge responsibility. We have to be careful with what we learn and how we use it. It makes us think critically about the past, the present, and the nature of time itself.
I'm going to said it better myself. And as we wrap up, here's one last question for you to think about. If you had a chronovisor, what event would you want to see? What mysteries would you try to solve? And how would that change how you see the world? It's something to ponder as you go about your day. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the mystery of the chronovisor.